okay? And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to grey as you fade away.
And I immediately thought, Reece has been caught. That's what I thought, Reece has been caught, he's ringing to tell me. And I remember saying to one of my friends, was talking about Reece, and I said, I'm just worried that he's either going to end up dead or in prison. And that was literally on the Sunday, and he died on the Friday. He said, Reece is gone. And I said, what do you mean he's gone? He's dead. He's passed away. She said, what's happened? I said, your brother's, Reece is dead, Reece is dead. And she started screaming, and Georgia was screaming, and I was screaming, and Deacon slept through the whole thing.
22 puncture of slash wounds is not people that is hanging about to find out information, is it?
They didn't care if Reece was dead or alive. They didn't care that they'd just ripped the family apart. They didn't care. I think life should mean life. You know, you've taken a life, you should give your life up, that's it. You should be in there and have nothing.
The last hello, the last goodbye, the last kiss, the last hug, the last conversation, the last photograph, every single thing that you do could be the last.
Yeah.
As you fade away.
Hi everybody, today we have an amazing guest, Charlotte. Thank you so much. She is the mother of Reece, who was a victim of knife crime. Something that's close to my heart, you guys know. I lost my brother the same way. We've managed to be able to connect, and today we have her story on Reece and what happened. How are you doing? Thanks for coming down today.
I'm okay, thank you.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yes. As I was saying to you earlier, I feel like I'm just not the same person I used to be. Before all this happened, you know, I'm just angry and anxious all the time.
And this is since you've lost Reece.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about how life was before all this horrific stuff happened to you and your family.
So I had Reece when I was 17. I was really young. I wasn't a single mum or anything like that, you know. I married his dad, and he's a good baby, you know. I struggled because I was 17, but we got through it together. Then his younger brother Josh came along, and his sister Georgia, and we just were like a normal family, you know. Married, 3 kids. He had loads of friends. He was really cheeky, and everybody sort of loved him. He just got on with everybody. Everybody knew him, you know, at school. If you said his name, everybody was his friend, and everybody knew who he was, and he was really popular.
How did he relate when you know, being the oldest and the only child coming in, and you'd be like, yeah, you've got another one? Was it like, no, I don't want no more brother or sister?
No, he was a really, really good brother. He loved his younger siblings. Me and his dad unfortunately split up. He was 13 at the time, and I moved away to Yorkshire, and Reece didn't want to go. He wanted to stay in, where we lived. We'd not long moved there. He'd started a new school, he'd made new friends, and it was like 2 months after that, and he said, look Mum, I really don't want to go and have to start all over again, can I stay? And his younger brother Josh was the same. So I said, okay, you can stay with your dad, but if you ever want to live with me, that's fine. You know, you come whenever you want, whenever you're ready. So he stayed with his dad, and he used to come up weekends, holidays and things like that, or he used to come down and visit. We used to see each other quite a bit, especially school holidays. He'd come and stay for a week or 2 weeks, sometimes longer. And again, he was just friends with everybody. He was into loads of hobbies, loved like anything that he wanted to do, he was good at it. So at one point he used to do breakdancing.
Oh, I love breakdancing.
And he auditioned for Britain's Got Talent with a group. Yeah, he was trained and he was with a group, and they auditioned. They didn't get through, but it's still something that he did, and he was really proud of that. And then he took his hand to BMX. He loved his BMX. He got really, really into it. It was really good. He got sponsored. And there's loads of videos on YouTube of him doing all these tricks and flips and all sorts.
We'll have to pull some of them up to put in this podcast, yeah.
Some of them, as a mum, used to make me cringe, because he used to put at the beginning all the falls and things, all the stuff that that he wouldn't have in the main video. He used to put at the beginning, and some of the tricks that he used to pull, and he broke his finger, dislocated his finger at one point and sent me a picture and stuff like that. I used to, as a mum, it used to freak me out, but he was really, really good at it and got quite a name for himself. And I don't know, he just started hanging around skate parks all the time with his friends. And then when he was 15, 16, I found out that he started smoking weed. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I wasn't happy about it, and he knew I wasn't happy about it.
You challenged him on it, did you?
Yeah, I challenged it on him loads of times. But when I brought it up, he kind of just would distance himself from me for a while, just because he didn't want to get moaned at by his mum, and he'd sort of he'd listen to what I said, but he wouldn't take any of the advice that was given to him. So he had his friends, he smoked weed. I knew that he was doing that. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't make him stop. And again, he was out of my hands because he wasn't living with me. I couldn't, I didn't have that influence over him.
Was you able to talk to the dad about it, or was you not on talking terms?
No, we was on talking terms, and he knew that I was against what he was doing, but he said, this is Reece, he doesn't listen to what you say. He unfortunately is very much like me, and if somebody tells me I can't do something, I just go ahead and do it, and I'll make sure that I'll do a good job of what I'm doing.
I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah, I'll prove you wrong.
And he, by the sounds of it, he did prove you wrong a lot, with like, oh, I don't want you doing that. He ends up with videos on YouTube, sponsored on his BMXing. I even know how much that panicked you. and the breakdancing, he proved people wrong because he had the balls to go up onto Britain's Got Talent and do all that lot. So
he had a lot of guts, and his personality just shone through in everything he did. He just had this massive smile on his face whenever he was doing stuff, and you can see that on his videos. And he so the skate park in Daventry, he helped sort of not petition, that's probably the one word, but he fought to get that skate park put there. He was involved and all the way until it was actually built. So he was kind of like there when it was born, and he was always there. Everybody knew, oh, where's Reese's at the skate park?
Originals.
Yeah, that's it. And my other son Josh, he was the same, but on his scooter. So they were both up there.
Did your other son? Were them two quite close, being boys?
Yeah.
Because you see, me and my brother, we was close, but when we was in trouble, we was super close.
Yeah.
Or when we'd both been kicked out by our missus, we was super close. This was like when we had exes way back. Life's good now, but like, me and my brother were close that way. But in life, it was always him and my other sister Jasmine, who you met today. Them two were like super best friends.
Yeah. I've got loads of pictures of Reece and Josh as they were older, going out clubbing or to raves, and they were both there together having a drink. And I've got loads of pictures of them together, which I'm sure Josh now treasures.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it's nice to see them having that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
There was only, I think, 4 years between them, so there wasn't that much of an age
fairly
gap.
Close for them. I like the same things.
And if Josh was ever in trouble, if he was having problems at school or anything like that, Reece would be there. Or probably people wouldn't even give Josh any trouble because he was Reece's brother.
Yeah.
But I know that when he was smoking weed at the skate park, because of his age, he was only 15, 16, he didn't have a job because he was always at the skate park. He needed a way to pay for the weed that he was smoking. And I believe that he started dealing weed to pay for his own habit. It was becoming a habit. He liked doing it, he enjoyed it. And all his friends were doing it, and I believe that he just started dealing this weed to pay for what he enjoyed doing, parts for his bike and things like that. And
Did you feel like you was losing him a bit in the whole weed? Because I find that a lot of parents that have lost their children, you know, to the streets, felt like they were slowly losing that baby. And it wasn't because they were turning into a man. It was just because they were just sinking more into the family they've created on the street. And yous were then become the fallback. You're always going to be there, but these are my people, you know. Did you get that?
I felt like I was a person there to lend him money when he needed it. I felt that he wasn't really as interested in getting a job because he just wanted to ride his bike and smoke weed. And for me, I've always been a person who has got high aspirations. I wanted my own business. I wanted to be successful. And because Reece was so much like me, I always thought he was going to be the same. You know, he'd be going out getting it. Even if he didn't do that well in his GCSEs, he'd still make something of his life because he had that kind of personality where he could just smile and people are drawn to him. You know, he'd be a good salesman or anything like that. You know, he's just had that personality.
They do say that if all people that sold drugs turned their hand at business, they would be very successful because it's more stressful being able to manage, you know, your shotters, all of these people paying your wages and making sure that like they get to A to B safe, and you know they turn out to be, they could be really good businessmen.
It's actually funny you should say that, because jumping forward, I will go back again, but jumping forward, not long before he died, he wanted to open a bagel shop. This was his thing. He absolutely loved bagels. He's known as Bagel Boy at one of the local cafes because they didn't sell bagels, but he'd take his own bagels in and say, "Can you cook them for me?" with his breakfast. So they called him Bagel Boy, and he wanted his own bagel shop, and he had all these kind of ideas of the bagels he was going to make and the name of his bagel shop. I can't remember what it is now, but he had this dream of having this bagel shop, and I loved that because I saw a little bit of me in him. But that dream never came. But he was like, "Mum, I'm just doing this to make a bit more money so I can start this bagel shop." He wanted to get the funds there to do it, and this is the way he thought was the only way he could do it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of kids are lost in this you know, fast money as long-term money situation of, I just need to do it a little bit longer. I need to do it a little bit longer, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then before you know it, you're either banged up in prison with nothing, or unfortunately for people like myself and you, is our, you know, our siblings have been taken because of it.
At one point, I had my own business. I was getting on with it, trying to build it up. I was doing well. And his dad called me and said, "Reece is in trouble. He's been raided." He was staying at his friend's house at this point, and he'd been raided, and the drugs were taken by the police, understandably. But now he owed some money to a dealer, and his dad knew that I had some money because I had my own business, and said, "Can you pay this dealer for Reece? Otherwise Reece is going to be in a lot of trouble." So I said, "Okay, I will pay this dealer, but I want Reece to come and live with me so I can keep an eye on him. I'll give him a job so he can start working, and he can pay me the money back out of his wages." And he agreed to that. So I paid the dealer, and I thought I'd got him out of it. He was away from those people. He was in a different town. I'd given him a job. And it was only till 2 o'clock, so he could still go and do his play on his BMX, go and go and do his tricks. And I thought that I'd given him the lifestyle that he really needed. You know, he had a bit of an income, and he had a job. He had that security. He had somewhere to live, and he had me watching over his shoulder. So I thought it'd deter him from doing that. But one day I went into work and he wasn't there where he was supposed to be. He wasn't doing his job. And I said, "Where's Reece?" And I said, "Don't know." And it turns out he'd moved out without telling me. He'd moved back to to Daventry without telling me. All his stuff was still in his room. I mean, I'd given him everything. He'd got his own room. He'd got everything that he wanted. He even wanted this big canvas on the wall of him on his BMX, and I got it for him. Big TV on the wall. You know, you name it. He had everything that he wanted. But it wasn't enough for him. And I think he needed more money, maybe. He started sofa surfing again. Next thing I know, he's put his name down on the council. The council had given him this big, brand new flat. He was, you know, he had it made really. He moved into this flat. I helped him. I bought him a cooker and helped him move stuff in because I had a van because of my business. I helped move stuff in, and I did as much as I can to make it easier for him whenever he needed me. And then he got raided again. I didn't know. Nobody told me. His dad started hiding stuff from me. Because,
did you know that it started selling again?
No, not at that point. I found out when he'd moved to another flat. And at the time, I just thought, oh, maybe he's just done an exchange or, you know, wanted to move into a better place or something like that. But it turned out, I found out, can't remember how I found out now, that he'd been raided again and had to move. I think even the council might have chucked him out.
So
I don't actually know.
They tend to do that if you get caught selling within your premises.
I don't actually know. Nobody's ever told me the truth. Everybody tried to hide stuff from me so that.
Do you know what he was selling?
As far as I know, it was just weed, pills, and cocaine. I think. I know that somebody told me that he wouldn't sell anything he didn't take himself.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I found out that obviously he wasn't just smoking weed then.
Yeah. How did that affect you, knowing that he was more onto Class A's with like cocaine and stuff?
I was worried that he was going to end up dead from doing that.
Yeah. That was my fear with my brother.
Yeah, I never thought in a million years that he's always such a strong, likeable person. He was very feisty like me, so you know, he was really short like me as well. So I think he was only about 5'5", 5'6". He was really short, but he had like he had this thing in him like me. Whereas if anybody disrespected him or anything, he'd fight his corner. You know, he'd
small man syndrome.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was trying to say. He had that kind of. He wouldn't let anybody take the mickey out of him or anything like that. You know, he was quite respected in that way, I think. And I never thought that this would be what would happen.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because stature-wise, my brother was a very small person as well, and he becomes such a powerful figure that you feel like there's nothing. Yeah. You know, and believe me, he would have thought that too, just like my brother did. Yeah. And it's not until, you know, it comes on top of you that you realise, fucking hell, we're not untouchable.
No.
We're actually only human, and we can die at any time, you know.
I think he thought he was untouchable. I honestly do, because everybody loved him. I don't think he thought anybody would do that to him. Mm-hmm. I think he was really... I've said this before, I think he was just really naive and thought everybody was his mate, and I think he was very trusting of people. I don't know, again, I was kept in the dark from everything, which really annoys me, because I feel that if I was told things at the time, I might have been able to make a difference. But I wasn't. I only found out things afterwards. But I found out at one point that he'd been to court for dealing and fighting, and he ended up on probation, like had to go to community service, something like that, and he hadn't gone, so then he was wanted by the police.
Yeah.
And it must have been about a month before he died, there was a mugshot came up on my Facebook thing of my son.
Oh wow.
Saying Reece is wanted for, I think I was missing it, but I can't remember what they said, but it wasn't for anything like, you know, he wasn't dangerous or anything like that, but it was just really surreal to just see my son's face looking at me on Facebook on a police, you know, on a Northamptonshire police post. Actually, one of my friends had shared it, who didn't know Reece was my son.
Oh, wow.
Which was really weird.
How did it make you feel being like, because it sounds like you were kept in the dark quite a bit with what he was up to. You obviously had some awareness of what he was doing for you to have the knowledge that you've got today.
I just didn't realise it was as bad as what it was. I was it was sugar coated for me.
Did you ever ask why everyone kept it from you?
Yeah, but they just said because I think his dad knows that I'm quite a feisty person. I keep saying I'm a feisty person, but I think he knew that I'd just go off my head, basically, and I'd start screaming and shouting at people and sort of have a go at Reece. And I'm quite, I don't know, I don't sit back and just let things happen. I'd try and stop it. And I think people just tried to protect me. They could see the kind of lifestyle I was leading and the kind of lifestyle he was leading, and trying to protect me from that.
Do you think that Reece didn't want you to know all of that because he was your baby? Or?
Yeah, I think he was trying to protect me from it. I think he didn't want people to know that I was his mum, because then I'm a target, aren't I? If they wanted to get to him, they could come to me. One thing I hadn't mentioned is when I remarried when I went to Yorkshire, because I keep jumping all over the place here.
It's okay.
When I went to Yorkshire, I remarried, and me and my husband Lee, this was in 2008. In 2009, I had a daughter, Lily, and a couple of years later, I had a son, Deacon. So Reece had another 2 siblings, and he absolutely loved it. I remember I've got a picture of when he came to meet Lily for the first time, because he was still living with his dad at that point. And he'd sort of kissed her I've got a picture of him kissing her on the head. He was just so proud of his little sister. And I've got Facebook posts of him saying, I love my sister, and things like that. They always pop up on my memories on Facebook. I think
that's a nice thing with social media, when you put the memories in every now and then, even when they're not here, you get a reminder of the times that you did have. And I think that's the most beautiful thing to do with social media, because it logs it and shows you without you least expecting it.
Yeah.
Memories that you forget.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when you have such a negative pattern in your head now after losing someone, that every now and then a good memory that pops up really can save you that day.
Yeah, definitely. There's loads of stuff that's come up. One that came up last week was... Philadelphia, when they did a chocolate version, a Cadbury's one.
Yeah.
And he'd taken a picture of it and thought, I love my mum. And that came up on my memories, and I just had to share it, because it was just, at that moment, it was like he was telling me he loved me.
Yeah.
Again, even though he wasn't.
Yeah.
But,
that's what I'm saying. Them powerful memories, they live on past the grave, and it's down to the legacy that he was creating without even realizing it. That little memory has made such an impact to your life after he's gone, that you're able to still embrace him, in life. Yeah. And that's what's important, being able to keep him alive emotionally.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the reasons why I started the podcast. To be able to show the rawness of the damage that's caused from what's being affected, and it's reaching more and more families on a daily basis. This pain, you can't explain it. You break down and cry.
Yeah.
You find yourself in a position where it's really hard to go on, and then you get the memory.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia memory.
Yeah. Of all things, Philadelphia. Another one is in the September before he died. So he died on the February the 1st, but in the September before he died, I was away. I was working away, and he sent me a message on Instagram. And we had this banter, me and Reece. He asked me when he was about 15 if he could have a tattoo, and I said only if it says mum on it. And we had this bit of banter, and he was getting all these tattoos, and I kept saying to him, where's it say mum? I thought you was having mum. And he was like, I will do. And I was away, and he sent me a picture, and he said, there you go, mum. And it just said mum and my date of birth. and then he had his dad on the other hand. So he did it, and I absolutely loved it because he kept his promise. Now I keep on at Josh, my other son, because he's got tattoos everywhere, and he keeps saying he's going to do it, but he hasn't yet. So I just keep nagging him. But things like that, you know. And then I shared it because I'm so proud. He got this tattoo, and it said "Mum," and but now it comes up on my memories every September now that he had this tattoo. But yeah, it's hard. It's bittersweet, really, because the memories come up, and you can be having a day where you're just hanging on, and then you'll see that, and then obviously you break down. Or you can be having a bad day, and then you see it, and it perks you up. You know, it can go either way. It can go either way. It just depends on how your state of mind is that day.
Yeah, and I don't think, like, because you remember when you get that picture, you never knew how important that picture would actually be.
Yeah.
You know, and I always turn around and say this: why do we value life so much once it's gone? You know, why do we value the people we surround ourselves in so much more when it's too late for us to be able to make any sort of, like, love you, you know, kiss a hug, all that, photographs, let's have a selfie, let's do this.
It's funny you should say that. So, as I said, he died on February the 1st, 2019. But on the 14th of November 2018, it was my birthday. I think it was my 41st birthday. And he came out for a meal with us. We went to this place that he loved and I loved, and all my friends came as well. I invited everybody. We had this massive table, and Josh came as well. I think Georgia, my daughter, she was looking after the two young ones for me, so I could go. And Reece turned up, Josh turned up, and I was just so proud my boys were there.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to my friends, look, here's my boys, because I'd not met Reece before, you know, and I was like, this is my boy, I'm so proud, and they were giving me presents, and Reece got me drunk, he was buying me loads of cocktails, and thought it was hilarious because he'd put more alcohol, got him to do doubles, you know, to get me drunk.
Yeah.
And but he hadn't told me, and he was telling all my friends, and they all thought it was hilarious. Well, we had this I said, something in me said to the boys, let's get a picture together. I haven't got any pictures of me and you as adults, let's get one. So I had a picture with Josh, just me and Josh, then I had a picture of me and Reece, just us, and then I had a picture with both my boys, both sides of me, arms around me, and I was so proud of those pictures. And I didn't know that was going to be the last picture that I had with him. The day he died, I changed my picture to my profile picture on Facebook to that picture, and I've never changed it, and I never will. It's always going to be, I can't do it. You know, even when I take a selfie and think, oh, that'd make a nice profile picture, I just can't change it.
Same with me on my WhatsApp picture, that picture of me and my brother. I'll put that on there of me and him. The only picture that we've got together is me and him, really.
Yeah.
Is that one, and I know exactly. Mine hasn't changed in 5 years. It's been that picture.
Yeah, I just can't do it. I'll never be able to do it, no matter how many selfies I take and like. That will never ever change from me and Reece. And it's been like that since the 1st of November, 1st of February 2019. So. I can't remember where I was now.
You're just
in the
talking
story.
amazing memories. Amazing memories.
I keep jumping around, that's what it is.
It's absolutely fine, it really is, I promise you.
Um,
I'm glad that you have their memories, you know, because this is what I try and say, like, it's very important that we create what we're doing now. We have to be able to appreciate each other so much, because the last hello, the last goodbye, the last kiss, the last hug, the last conversation, the last photograph, every single thing that you do could be the last.
Yeah.
And no one looks at it. People think they're going to be here forever, and they think that the people in their lives are going to be here forever. But the truth and the reality of it, because we know, is it's not. Because if someone else is choosing somebody else's destiny that day, that is the last.
It's like a few days before he died, I was sitting having a conversation. I had some friends round, and it was on the Sunday. And I remember saying to one of my friends, was talking about Reece, and I said, I'm just worried that he's either going to end up dead or in prison. And that was literally on the Sunday, and he died on the Friday. That was just, it was like, and with that picture, I always feel like something made me say that, or something made me do that. And it's like deep down I knew that was going to happen. And I don't know, it's just really strange the way it all panned out. A few months, about 6 months before he died, so I was saying he was on the run from the police. He came over to my house and said to me, can I come and stay at your house? You know, I'll give you £100 a week, because I had a spare bedroom. And I said, I can't do it, Reece. You've got your little brother and sister here. I don't want any trouble on my doorstep. I've got a nice house and nice neighbours, and I don't want my house raiding in the middle of the night, and I can't do it. As much as I'd love to have you living here, I can't. And I'm always going to beat myself up for saying no, because I feel that if I'd have said yes, he'd still be here. And because I said no, he then went and lived in a friend's flat with a friend. He had a friend called Zach, and he had a flat. He was struggling living on his own, you know, paying bills, going to appointments. He had a lot of mental health issues. And Reece kind of like helped him, cooked him dinners. Reece used to love cooking, absolutely love cooking. All these concoctions, you know, when you see like, it would be like waffles with sausage and bacon and eggs.
Sounds like my kind of dinner.
Yeah, and he'd make all these like really epic meals. I think he got that from me as well, because I kind of did that for him when he was growing up. But yeah, he kind of looked after him, made sure he got up and went to his appointments or went to work, you know, and helped Zach out. And he used to pay the rent in sort of, you know, so he could stay there. And that's where he died. I think he was dealing from that flat. Again, he was naive. He thought these people were his friends. They came round to that flat.
So he knew his attackers.
Yeah, he knew them. The one who organised it, Jordan Kimpton, he owed Reece money. Reece wasn't a violent person, you know, he didn't go and attack him or anything like that. But Reece said, look, just pay me back weekly and stuff like that, you know. He again, I found all this out afterwards.
Was this money
I didn't
for drugs
know,
that he knew?
Yeah. I didn't know anything about this. I didn't even know where Reece was living at this point. I didn't know he was living at Zach's flat. I didn't, because Reece just protected me from that kind of thing. I saw Reece on the Tuesday night. His sister Georgia was pregnant. We'd found out she was pregnant, and Georgia had gone to get a gender scan so we could find out what she was having. So we organised to meet at the Harvester that night. We was going to have a big family meal, our family and Georgia's partner's family, and we was all going to find out what she was having. So we were all there, the whole family enjoying it. Reece was there, and his dad was there, so my ex-husband. And I don't know if it's because at that point we'd talk, but it was kind of frosty.
Yeah.
I sat over one side of the room, and his dad was there, but he was just on his own. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he found it uncomfortable because his dad was like that, or, you know, and wasn't joining in with everything. Yeah. But he seemed off that night. And he didn't stay that long. We found out that Georgia was having a baby boy. We all gave her presents, and it was lovely. But Reece went early, and he came over and he said, I'm going, Mum. I'll come and see you Thursday. I was sitting on the other side of the table, and he sort of bent over, gave me a hug, said, love you. And I said, love you, see you Thursday. And that was it. I never thought in a million years that would be the last time I saw him alive. And then Thursday night, I was just going to bed. I was sort of sitting up in bed, and I was talking to my husband, and I said, Reece never came, did he? And it was always kind of a bit of of a running joke because Reece was the kind of person who'd say, "Oh, I'll be over on the weekend," and then he wouldn't turn up.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "Oh, Reece never turned up again." And then,
Did you ever get to the bottom of why he was feeling frustrated that night?
no, still don't know. Oh, actually, well, I thought it was because of of his dad. But somebody said to me that night.
You carry on talking. I'm just going to shift your mic.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. You thought that night.
I thought that, so I thought it was because of his dad, but I've been told since that Reece was supposed to collect some, pay for some drugs and then collect some drugs to give to his dealers. Because at that point, Reece was not only dealing himself, he also was selling drugs to other dealers. So he was kind of more into it.
Do you feel like he was taking more drugs at this time as well?
Yeah, I feel that he was.
And do you think that's might have been what was suppressing his mood a little bit?
Could have been. Somebody said to me that he went to pick some drugs up that night, but they weren't there, or there was a problem, and he'd paid for drugs and he hadn't received. He paid the money out, but he hadn't received. But I don't know how true that is. I know I can never ask Reece what happened because he's not here. I can only go on what's been hearsay basically. It could have been because of his dad, or it could have been because of that. I don't know. And it got to the Thursday night. He hadn't turned up. I never really thought much of it because it happened a lot. He'd say he never turned up, and then he'd turn up 2 days later. He always used to come round on a Sunday, every single Sunday night, and he used to sit in this place on the sofa. We'd sometimes get a takeaway, a Caribbean takeaway, or some jerk chicken, or we'd get a Nando's or something like that. And he'd sit there every single night, and he'd come in and he'd say to his little brother Deacon, he'd say, "You're right, little man." That was his thing. He used to call him little man, or his little G, or something like that. And he used to put his chain on him, and Deacon's a little mini Reece. Even now.
Does that scare you?
Yes. The day Reece died, I couldn't look at Deacon. I couldn't be anywhere near him, and that's horrible because he needed me, but I just couldn't be there. Couldn't look at him because he just looks like his brother, and he acts like his brother. He's like a mini. It's like I'm going through Reece's childhood again, but with Deacon. I just couldn't
do you feel like you try and divert Deacon now more so, and it be more frustrating now bringing Deacon up because he's so much like Reece that you feel like he might fall into the same trap as what Reece did?
It really worries me. Since this has happened, I worry about all my kids. I worry that they're going to be in a car accident, or they're going to just not wake up one day. Everything worries me. Everything worries that I'm going to lose another child, or all of them. But there's nothing I can do. That anxious feeling's always going to be there because I know it can happen now. I know that I can lose one of them.
Fear is real, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And to live your life, I know I've got this for however many years I live. I've got this feeling forever. I went to sleep that night like any other night. I always sleep well. I don't have trouble getting to sleep. But about 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone was ringing. I thought, that's weird. Nobody ever rings me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I saw it was my ex-husband. And I immediately thought, Reece has been caught. That's what I thought. Reece has been caught. He's ringing to tell me. And he said, Reece is gone. And I said, what do you mean? He's gone. He's dead. He's passed away. And at that point, I just thought he'd been in a car accident or something like that. I didn't understand what was going on. It was 3 o'clock. I'd just literally woken up, and I thought, am I dreaming? I was like, well, it's my baby. No, this isn't happening. This is my baby. And I just remember saying, it's my baby. No, it's not him. It's not him. Just get them to check. Have a look for his tattoo. Because he's got the tattoo. And if it's not got the tattoo, it's not him. And they said he's got the tattoo, it's him. And I said, well, what happened? And he said, I don't know. I said, well, how was he died? I don't know. That he didn't know anything at that point. And I don't even remember hanging up the phone, or I don't remember what happened. I just remember running through the house. Georgia was living with me with her partner because she was pregnant, and they were saving up for their own place, and she had a lock on the door. And I remember banging on the door, saying, Georgia, just wake up. And she opened the door, and I just threw myself at her and I said, Reece is dead. And it's just a blur. My daughter Lily, she woke up and she was crying. She didn't know what had happened. And she said, what's happened? I said, Reece is dead. And she started screaming, and Georgia was screaming, and I was screaming, and Deacon slept through the whole thing. He didn't hear any of it, luckily. My ex-husband said the police had come in to see me. So I got myself together and went downstairs. And it's really weird because I switched the light on in the living room and all the electrics blew in the house.
Wow.
And we had to go and do the fuse.
Switch, yeah.
And that never happened in that house before, and it's never happened. Well, it happened once, but I'll tell you about that later. And I remember just sitting there in the living room, just thinking, this is not happening. This is just, I'm dreaming. I'm going to wake up from this. And then that's when I changed my profile picture to me and Reece. At that very point, I was just sitting there looking at that picture, and I put it on there. And just remember staring at that picture, and the police came. It was this poor policeman. He'd just been sent to me. He didn't know what had happened to himself. I kept saying, what's happened? He said, I don't know. I'm trying to find out. I said, well, has he been shot? Has he been stabbed? How's he died? What is this him? You know, at that point I thought there might be a slight chance that they got this wrong. I still was hanging on to this hope that this was all just wrong and it wasn't my son, it was somebody else's. And as horrible as that sounds, I didn't want it to be my son. I knew it'd have to be somebody's, but I didn't want it to be mine. And this policeman, he just didn't know. And I just said, you might as well go. You're no good to me, you know. And it wasn't, and I stayed awake. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to sleep. And then
Did the officer leave, did he?
Yeah, he left.
Wow, that's crazy.
I just told him to go because he wasn't any support. He didn't know. He'd just been called in and just said, can you go and see this family and support them? But he was no good to me. He didn't know anything what was going on himself, you know.
So your husband got the call. Did they knock on the door for him?
They knocked on the door for him. They were at his house.
And they just said to him that he's been involved in an incident.
Yeah. And he didn't really know what was going on. I didn't know. So I was given his girlfriend's number.
Was she living at the house with Reece and this Zach boy?
Yeah. And then I was starting to, at that point, I just had a jigsaw puzzle in front of me, and I didn't know how all this fitted together and who was there. But remember, I didn't know where he was living, who was living with him. I didn't know any of these people, only his girlfriend, because he'd bring her round on a Sunday. I didn't know who this Zach was. And it turned out there was two. There was Reece, his girlfriend, and 3 other people staying in the flat that night. Reece there was a double bed in this room, and then there was a sofa. There was Reece and his girlfriend, and there was somebody staying over. He was staying on the sofa. And then in the other room, there was 2 lads in there, Zach and another friend. And when I rang his girlfriend, she was at the hospital. She was having her ear stitched back up because it was all cut.
They sliced her?
Yeah. And I said to her, what's happened? And she just went, I'm so sorry. And it was all kind of a blur, really. She just said that they stabbed him. This is how I found out what had actually happened, is through her, because the police weren't telling me anything at that point. They didn't know. I don't know if it's because I lived in Rugby, Warwickshire, and it happened in Northampton. I don't know if it was like the county difference, which was stopping me from getting the information, but nobody seemed to be telling me anything, really. And she told me what had happened, or what she knew. She said it was dark, and she didn't. I was like, "Do you know who did this?" She was saying, I'm not sure. It was all dark, and I don't know if I've got an inkling who it could be."
Was it people that were staying in the house that done this, or
No.
so they gained access through the door, or somebody let them in, or did they kick the door in?
So they kicked the door in. So the first bedroom where the two lads were, they heard the kicks. They'd been out. They came back. They'd been to the pub. The two lads. The others were in playing Xbox, just chilling out. The two lads had come back. They'd gone into their room, just dropping off to sleep, and there was some bangs on the door. They immediately thought it was police, so they barricaded the door in that bedroom. They gained entry. This all happened within 2.5 minutes. They'd gained entry. They couldn't get in the first room. They went into the second room. All I know is what the barristers in court had all pieced together. All the people who did this said no comment, and they all blamed each other. Nobody's ever admitted who did it. The only person who's spoken to me is the guy who drove them there, but didn't go in. He's the only person who's told me what he knows.
You spoke to him personally?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So from what I've gathered, they kicked the door in. They couldn't get in the first room, so they went into the room where Reece was. There was him, his girlfriend, and a friend on the sofa. They attacked his girlfriend at some point. I don't know if that was before or after they attacked Reece. I don't know if Reece was defending her, but they were looking for drugs and money. And I believe that's because the person who organised it knew Reece was getting these drugs, but Reece didn't have them, because I told you he didn't get them when he was expecting to. So he had no drugs and he had no money, because he paid for these drugs that he hadn't received. He hadn't received the drugs. He had neither. They was asking him for money, asking him for drugs. He didn't have any. And I don't know at what point they decided to kill him, or I don't know if Reece tried to get them out, or I don't know what happened. And this what frustrates me the most. It's because I've got this jigsaw that I was telling you about, and I could never put it together, because nobody has ever told me the truth about what happened. And all I know is that Reece had 22 knife wounds. He had a lot of slashes on his hands and feet, soles of his feet, where he was trying to defend himself. He was on his back and he was holding his hands up, and he had slashes. I know that when the police came, Reece's organs were not in him, and they were trying to push him all back together. I know that they used a machete. I know that there was a BB gun, but in the dark, who would know if that was real or not? Who would know if it's not a real gun? I was told there was a baseball bat as well. There was 4 of them that went in there, and one waited outside. One was the driver who waited outside. I know that those 4 people, they all know what happened, but they won't tell me. I know that one of them was the main instigator. He was somebody who Reece, knew and dealt with. He owed Reece money, but Reece let him pay him back, as and when. As long as it got paid back, he didn't care. And I know that they were only in there a couple of minutes. They must have been savage to do all that damage to him in just 2 minutes. And they all ran away, got in the car and drove off like nothing. They didn't care if Reece was dead or alive. They didn't care that they'd just ripped the family apart. They didn't care. All they cared about was themselves. And
22 puncture of slash wounds is not people that is hanging about to find out information, is it? They've gone in there. And do you know what it is? Like, what a lot of these kids aren't realising, and I say kids, young men and women are not realising that the people that they have close to them that are not eating from the same pie they are, best believe they're looking to try and get what they've got with no effort whatsoever. Yeah. And that means no graft, no nothing. They want to take what you've got. And you often find that the people that are closest to you are the ones that stab you in the back, quite literally.
That's what they did. Literally, Reece would have never seen that come in, you know?
And that's what I mean. We become blind to it because we feel like, you know, that you are my friend. You are someone that I do trust. You are someone that I would like to take to the top with me. But some people have that streak of evilness in them. Yeah. That they want it now. They don't want to work for it. They don't want to do anything for it. They just want it. You do all the hard graft. They take what's off top. And they'll do anything they can to make that happen, you know. And that's the hard thing with the streets is no one's loyal.
My brother was very close to Reece. Very, very close. They were not like uncle and nephew. They were like brothers. And my brother used to hang around with Reece. He used to smoke weed with him. And it was their thing, you know, their thing in common. And I rang my brother straight away. You know, I was trying to ring him straight away. He was the first person that I was trying to get hold of as soon as this happened. And couldn't get hold of him. So I sent Georgia and a partner. I said, you're going to have to go and get Danny. Go and get Danny now. I need Danny here. Because I knew that he might know who did this because he was always at that flat. He knew. And they got Danny. Danny came and Danny said straight away who he thought it might be. And he was right. You know, the police were brilliant.
Did they go in there bellied up and stuff? Would they have even known who it was? Like, how did you get to find out who it was?
So my brother had an inkling who it was just because of the people who we used to go around that flat, and the person Jordan Kimpton, he'd come out of prison for stabbing somebody. I believe he was on bail for stabbing somebody, pending further investigation. And he'd gone back, he was on licence, been recalled to prison and then come back out again. And another one of them, he was known for having a machete and going around slashing people. So straight away, there was two names I was given within a couple of hours of it happening. Obviously, I told. So later on that day, finally, the family liaison, they came to me to get as much information as they could, and I gave those names. In my head, I just thought straight away, they're not going to catch them. They're going to get away with it. Whoever's done this, they're just going to get away with it. You hear of it all the time, people just getting away with murder, literally getting away with murder. And then I was starting to think, how am I going to cope if these people just get away with it and walk the streets? How's that going to tear me up inside?
I went through the same feelings.
It's, horrific as it is, but, to not get justice as well on top. I mean, I see, walking this path I've made a lot of contacts, you know, a lot of friends with mums in my situation, and some of them have not got justice. That the killers are still walking free in the same town where I can't even begin to imagine what I'd do if I was walking along the street and came face to face with somebody you know was involved with your son's murder, but they've got away with it. How would you cope with it? I couldn't even begin to imagine what I'd be like, especially with the way I am, being this feisty person that I keep telling you about. I can't even begin to imagine what I'd be like. But the police were amazing. You know, they were there all the time. My family liaison officer, he was absolutely brilliant. He was really caring and kept me informed with everything that was going on. And within, I think it was 2 days, 4 of them had been arrested. He even rang me at like 2 o'clock in the morning to tell me they were charged, because he knew that I was staying up all night to wait. I knew that they were in custody and it had been extended, and they literally had to a certain time to either let them go on bail or charge them. And he knew that I was waiting up for that information, and he rang me.
You said that you spoke to the driver. How did that come about?
So it was actually during the trial. I'd commented on, you know, because the local newspaper, the Northamptonshire Chronicle, they were doing updates on a Facebook page, and I commented on there because I used to get annoyed. It used to really hurt when I used to see comments, oh, it's just a drug dealer, he deserved it, he shouldn't have been in that lifestyle.
It's mad. I was talking to your daughter about that before, when they were saying it's like, you know, before you end up raising awareness on these, everyone always go, oh yeah, drug dealer, he's a druggie, brought it upon himself, and that is really hard to hear. That really is hard to hear, especially if it's your son.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, one just recently that I've only just seen now from back in 2019, it was like, oh, good, drug dealers are going around killing each other, it's getting them off the streets, you know. And does that person not understand that that's my son and he's a big brother, he's got siblings? And
this is why I try and raise awareness with this, because people are so harsh, especially behind the screen. People are so harsh, and they don't realise that the words, that one word could seriously tip you over the edge to the point of suicide.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like they understand the danger that negative comment, you know, why that has to be put out there like that. Why do you have to put it out there? And no one responding to it. You know, you've put that out there thinking you're clever, and you really ain't, because that is a matter of life and death for a mother.
Yeah.
That comment.
Definitely. When I see comments like that, I will literally, I go on like a rampage, not a physical rampage, but mentally I then start looking for other things, and it kind of winds me up, and I get all het up about the whole thing, and it spirals, and my mental health just plummets, you know. And it takes a while to get myself back, just clinging on, you know, for a bit, just clinging on. That's how I describe my life now. I'm just literally by my fingernails holding on, and just the slightest little thing will literally just I'll just let go.
Yeah.
I'm okay, I'm just stable, but I feel like I'm just always holding back tears. I'm always like literally on the edge, and I've got quite good at masking it. I've learned to do that over the last 3 years, and I think maybe going through the trial helped with that, because we had a 6-week trial, well, almost 6 weeks, and I was then primed by, you know, family liaison, you know, going for a trial yourself, you know, you're not allowed to show emotion, you've got to be quiet, you've got to act, you've got to act, basically. You're not allowed to show that you're absolutely distraught. You can't be seen to influence the jury. You have to behave in a certain way, otherwise you can't go to court. You can't go and get justice for your son. You've got to be this emotionless person and sit there and watch your son's murder weapon, you know, the machete with his blood on, getting passed around the courtroom, and you're not allowed to show any emotion for that. You've got to sit there and watch it. You're not allowed to show any emotion when you see the body cam footage of the officer going into the flat where it happened. They cut it off for my benefit so that I didn't see what that officer had to deal with. But I still saw the minutes after. Reece might have still been alive during that video, I don't know, but you've still got to sit there. You've got to sit there while the families right near you of the people. Don't get me wrong, not all the families were disrespectful, but there was some that were sniggering. They thought they were smirking at me. They thought that Reece deserved it. They thought that I was like them, you know, I was this gangster family, you know, like, and it wasn't like that. You know, I had my own business. I just wanted to get on with life. I didn't want any of this drugs in my life, or I don't want to go to court. I don't want my son murdered. I didn't want any of that. I just wanted a happy family life, and that's gone now. And they thought it was funny, and the people who did it, they were in that glass box and they were staring at me and smirking and calling me names, and they didn't care. They had no remorse whatsoever. Just one of them had remorse. One of them looked at the floor, wouldn't look at me.
One of the people, the perpetrators that did it.
Yeah. So during the trial, that lad, Ethan, his best friend, she was a girl. Her mum was on this Facebook group, and she'd seen my comments, and she messaged me, and she just said, you know, she didn't condone anything that Ethan had done, but he was a lovely lad. She said, you know, I can't stress to you how out of character this was for him. You know, he would come from a nice family, they were religious, he's had a really good upbringing. She said it was like almost unbelievable that he'd played a part in Reece's murder. It turned out that he hadn't gone in the flat.
He was the driver.
He was the driver. He got them there. And he accepts his responsibility. The person who I was speaking to, we met in person eventually. And we used to speak a lot on the phone or do video chat. And one day she was speaking to him on the phone. He'd rang her, and I was on the phone, and she kind of put us both together. And he just started apologising. I was just like, I'm so sorry. You know, if I could change anything, I would. If I can answer any of your questions that you've got, I will. If I know the answer, but I didn't go in there, I can't tell. All I can tell you is what happened before and what happened after, what was said.
What did he say about what happened before? How did they approach him? Was he part of the circle, or was he just...
No, so he wasn't in that group of friends. He was friends with one of them. That one person, from what I gather, the main instigator, his car had broke down or wasn't working or something, and they needed a car. They needed to get there and get away. And one of the other guys who was there, he knew Ethan and said, I know somebody will do it. And I think they promised him, they thought there was 30 grand. They thought this instigator had told all these other lads there's 30 grand in that flat. Let's go and rob him. And I could almost laugh about it because Reece had never had, he was always messaging me, Mum, can you lend me some money? You know, my son ain't going to have 30 grand in that flat. And they promised him 2 grand to take him there, take him back. And he said his words were he was greedy. He wanted that 2 grand. But he said if he would have known that they were going to murder him, he would have never obviously gone. They just thought they were just robbing him. He was just an easy target. Get the money, go. And he's written to me. I've written to him back. He's remorseful. He wants to do charity work. He wants to, you know, help stop people doing this.
So he got sentenced, yeah?
He got sentenced. He got manslaughter. He was the only one out of the 5 that got manslaughter.
What time did he get?
He got 14 years.
To serve?
No. So he gets out in 7, and he's done 3 of those.
How does that sentence make you feel? Because I know the 22 years and the 18 years full sentence serving before they can apply for parole for my brother wasn't enough.
I felt for him, personally, after speaking to him and meeting his family, I've actually spoken to his mum, and his cousin and his brother, his sister, and just seeing the kind of lifestyle that he had, and I can see that could have easily have been Reece. He been brought up well.
It is so easy. I don't think parents are realising how easy it is to groom a child to do something so severe as that.
He made a bad choice. He made a wrong decision. He knows that. He's really remorseful. Even in court, they read out, the transcript from his interview, and he just kept saying, I'm so sorry for his mum and things like that in the interview.
Do you forgive him?
That's a hard one to answer. I understand why he did what he did. And I believe that if he didn't drive them there, somebody else would have drove them there. I don't believe that him not driving there would have stopped it from happening.
Has he asked for forgiveness?
No. He accepts whatever sentence, he said, whatever sentence I get. He's been classed as a snitch because he was the only one who spoke to the police. He told them what happened. He had to go in a VP wing. I was told that when they were in their glass box and he sat on the end and he just looked at the floor, they had to have a guard in between him and the others because protecting him, because he was the only one who believed that what they'd done was wrong. The others, no, they didn't care. And you could see that from the way they were there, the way they were laughing and joking in there. It made me actually feel sick.
How long did they get?
So Jordan Kimpton, we'll start with him. Remember me saying he was on bail for stabbing somebody else, pending further investigation. He got 34 years.
Wow.
Do you know why? Because he got prosecuted for that other stabbing after Reece was murdered.
So they didn't run it consecutive, they run it separate.
Well, it looks that way, yeah, because he got 34 years.
Wow, 34. How old is he?
21, I think.
Will he have to, is that full serve? Yeah. Wow. That's justice.
That is justice.
To a level.
But I still don't feel any better about it.
To a level, yeah.
The one, his kind of right-hand man, if you want to call him that, Addison, he was the one in court that he had to have somebody there telling him what was going on. He kind of didn't get it. I think he had ADHD or something like that, and he had to have somebody explaining to him all the way what was going on and wording it differently for him. I believe he was manipulated into doing that, but he's the one who always had a machete. He got 31 years. Again, he was on bail for stabbing somebody else. Got prosecuted, convicted at the same time for that other one. I believe had they been convicted before, they would have been in prison and Reece would still be here. This is another...
Yeah, that's the jeopardy of life, isn't it? Like, if they would have been caught, that night would never have happened. And you know, a lot of people, they do go on about the justice system being so poor and being, you know, not harsh enough, not being fast enough. But because of the CPS, and I know this through my brother's trial, and you'll know this as well, is through CPS, is they want to gather the correct evidence. So when it goes to retrial after the main trial, they can't pick it apart. They want the sentences to stick.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, things like that take time. And now they're not holding people in jail in between cases. Things like this happen, and you know, it's more and more is happening, and I hope the law does change soon enough to be able to see a way out of this stuff not happening. It's just unfortunate in between the times that they are sorting this problem out.
Yeah.
People are losing their lives on the street on a daily, and they're getting younger and younger.
Yeah.
You know, and it's absolutely crazy.
The other two that were involved, Cameron Higgs and Alfie Drage, they both got 28 years each.
How old was this group? This group of lads?
I think they were between 18 and 22. I think was the older. I think Ethan was the oldest.
You're just starting the prime of life, aren't you? You're not even out of that school stage, really, are you? You're still hanging around with your friends on the streets, like you're still doing that. It's not even adulthood yet.
They in court they were showing videos of them doing all these videos, you know, rapping grime. Is it grime or
drill music? Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but doing all these things, waving the machetes around and boasting about it. And what are they doing? I don't understand what they're doing. Why would you do that? You know, even since one of them, Addison, has gone to prison, I've seen a video of him rapping, doing the same thing, boasting about what he's done. I've got it. People send me these things. I've got pictures and videos of them boasting about what they've got in prison, and pictures of them with their arms around the mates, looking like they're having the time of their life. They're supposed to be serving a punishment. They're supposed to be in there for life, being miserable, and they took Reece's life away. They shouldn't be smiling, having a laugh. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be boasting about how many noodle pots and stuff they've got there next to their kettle. And I don't know, it's just, I got the justice, I got the 34 years, the 31 years, the 28 years, but I don't feel like they're actually serving, they're not miserable in there, from the pictures I've seen anyway.
My sister struggles with this on a daily basis, and you know, when she hears about people that have got PlayStations, Xboxes, TVs. You know, you can paint your cell if you're a lifer. You can paint your cell whatever colour you want. You could have, you know, things brought from you via catalogues and stuff in jail to make life. You can even have a pet, a bird or something. In some jails you can have. You know, and my sister struggles daily. She's like, my brother's dead, but these guys have got Xboxes and they've got, you know, and unfortunate for us victims that human rights come into play there. Yeah. But
they don't think of our human rights. They don't think of our life sentence that we've been given. Where's our human rights?
I know.
I think life should mean life. You know, you've taken a life. You should give your life up. That's it. You should be in there and have nothing.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life.
I agree with the nothing. I agree with like going in there.
The bare basics.
Yeah.
I don't feel that I'm getting justice in that way. And I thought when they said how long they were going to get, I thought it would all sort of lift and I'd feel better about it. Not better, that's probably the wrong word, but I thought I'd be able to have a bit of closure and think, right, that's it, they're behind bars, that's it. We can start rebuilding our life and try and get on the best way we can, but we don't feel any better at all. There's no weight gets lifted, nothing. You just feel as bad as what you did. Probably worse because you've just been through a 6-week trial and you've seen and heard a lot of things that no mum should have to see. Mums shouldn't have to go into a mortuary and just see their son laying there. He was like, we couldn't see him, like his body. We could only see his face. That's it, his head. That's it. Everything else was covered. I couldn't hold his hand because he had all slashes all over him. Couldn't see anything. And he looked perfect. He just had a little tiny nick under his nose, like a little tiny scratch. And then he just looked like he was sleeping, maybe, a bit poorly, because he didn't have the colour in his cheeks. And then I stroked his face and he was freezing cold. And I just felt like I needed to cuddle him and get him warm. I weren't allowed to touch him. I could just touch his face. I wasn't allowed to, like, he was evidence, wasn't he? So we wasn't allowed to do anything. And I was only allowed in there for about 10 minutes. That was it. And even now, 3 years later, I can still see it in my head how he was. And he went from being this really strong sort of person to that. And then obviously we've seen all the stuff in court, you know, everything, heard all what the barristers said happened. And I just want to know the truth, really. I just want to know actually who did what and why. I understand they wanted money and drugs, but why take his life? He didn't have anything. They didn't need to do that. If he didn't have anything, just walk away. Why go in there with knives?
Do you hear much from his girlfriend at the time? Do you hear much from her?
No. She's moved on. This is what I find now, 3 years down the line. Everybody's moved on. And like the day he died, and everybody was there. Everybody. My parents and my grandparent and all my friends and family, they were all there. And I just remember laying on the sofa, kind of just like seeing everybody doing stuff and talking, and I felt like I was just on pause and everybody else was doing stuff. And all these flowers suddenly, like I remember I was like laying on the sofa and the fireplace was opposite, and then suddenly all these cards started appearing and flowers, and I don't know who bought them or where they came from, or, you know, it was all these things just appearing on my fireplace, and I can't remember how they got there. I didn't put them there. People must have came and gone, and I didn't even notice. And the police were coming and going, and it was just all a blur, really. I remember not eating, not drinking. I just laid on that sofa. I didn't get out of my pyjamas for probably 2-3 days. And then I remember the night that he died, there was candles. Everybody had bought candles and lit candles. And I kept asking him to flicker these candles. And I kind of in my head, I just thought, right, he's still here. I kind of wouldn't accept that he's gone. Thought he was good at everything. So if he was going to be the best, he's going to be the best spirit. He's going to come and see me because he can do that because it's Reece and he can do anything. And even now, I don't accept that he's gone. I just think to myself that he's away on a holiday or he's doing something. You know, he ain't come to see his mum for a bit. Like he used to go on his, you know, used to go away and not come round for a month or something because he was busy. It's just like that. I just have to tell myself that he's just away somewhere.
What was it like for you? Because like Reece for you, and my brothers for my mum, it was firstborn. That's the firstborn. You know, most of your life has been,
yeah.
And most of my mum's life was my brother, and most of your life, from child, 17 years old to now, has been Reece.
He made me a mum. And I feel like he taught me how to be a mum. I try and be the best mum I can to my other children now. But I don't feel like I'm good enough for them anymore. I feel like I failed Reece. I feel like I'm going to fail them. My kids are just the older two, Josh and Georgia. I feel like they just bottle everything up and try not to be emotional in front of me because they don't want to set me off. Lily, she's now 12. She was 9 at the time. She now struggles to sleep. She self-harms. We found suicide notes. She wants to be with her brother. she has fights at school because kids use what happened to Reece as a weapon to wind her up, or to set her off. She struggles in school. She's become angry. She wants justice for her brother, but I think she's frustrated because she's too young to do anything about it. And she's seen what it's done to me. I think that makes her angry too. Deacon was only 7, and I still feel that he doesn't understand. It still goes over his head. He doesn't really, he bottles it. I don't know if it's a boy thing, but he bottles everything up. I never really see him cry. He doesn't really talk about it.
It's dangerous.
Yeah. And I always worry that one day he's going to sink in and then he's going to explode.
Mm-hmm.
He's now 10, and like I was saying before, he's just like his brother, and it worries me.
I think my advice to you on him, especially being so much like him, and the bond they sound like they had, I think it's very important to capture his mind now with trying to help him find some solace within himself, because when he gets to an age where he's powerful enough to be able to take matters into his own hands to prevent or to get his own back, it will be too late.
Yeah.
I think at 10 years old now, it's important that he might not want to talk to you. He might not want to talk to his dad. He might not want to talk to any member of family that knows him. An outsider may help him a lot better, as hard as that sounds. But I think it's important that you kind of get into his mind,
Yeah.
to be able to help him manage it before the testosterone kicks in, before he's powerful enough, like I say, to be able to take matters into his own hands. Because you see me, when I was younger and I was thinking, I'd be like, yeah, you're a man. I might not be able to deal with you because you're a man, but you've got a kid, you've got a cousin, you've got a nephew. I'll get my own back on you by taking one of them. You understand?
Yeah.
So that pattern needs to be broken. That danger needs to be realised.
The thing is, if you'd have got your own back, it wouldn't have brought your brother back.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And this is how come I changed on so much from what I was to what I am now. It is. I come to reason with myself that behaviour doesn't work. It never did. But I allowed myself to believe it did work.
Yeah.
Now, I had nobody to show me that behaviour didn't work. Yeah, I just had people telling me, yeah, that's Paul. Yeah, that geezer's nuts, all of the rest of it. I had all that lot, and I was living off that ego. Yeah, and it made me stronger. It made me more aggressive. It made me more physical. Yeah, and when I lost my brother, my world just split apart, because I wasn't the person who I was led to believe I was. The person who I truly am is the one I am now. And that's the one that tries to help raise the awareness with the knife crime, tries to do the charity work, trying to podcast people like yourself that's in this danger, trying to help you be able to manage the feelings in a way where the legacy is created in a more positive outlook to you just stepping to one side and just letting it all bottle up. It's very important that our viewers are seeing the rawness, the realness of the devastation that they're causing in 2.5 minutes. 3.5 minutes. Done.
Yeah.
That was roughly around about the same sort of time it was.
They were caught on camera going in and coming out on CCTV, so they knew how long they were actually in there.
But what are these people thinking? 3.5 minutes to 30-something years in jail. They're going to be old. There's nothing left of their life to be able to have children, to be able to have nothing. That's all been taken from him. A life has been taken from you, from his brothers and sisters, from his dad. Not only that, is the damage it's going to cause on you're saying 10 years old. That is something that's caused. It's not just us now. It's them for later.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what doesn't get addressed. This is what gets left. This is the next generation of children are being brought up in pain. And it's not being addressed, that we need to jump on that now.
I mean, even my daughter now being 12, or 11, 12, she's had to not only go through a brother being murdered, the trial, seeing stuff in the papers, looking on YouTube, seeing stuff about him, for seeing these comments about him being a drug dealer. You know, at that age, my kids didn't even know what a drug dealer was, and I've had to explain to a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old why, because the first question is, why? Why have they done that to my brother? And I've had to try and explain to a child that young why that's happened. And they've had to go through that. My daughter wanted to go to the trial. She wasn't allowed because she was a child. She wanted to do a victim impact statement. She wasn't allowed in court, but they allowed her to do it on video. So it was played in court. But even now, she's frustrated. She's just really, really frustrated that her brother's been taken from her. And she's had to watch, even now, I mean, it's only just recently it's all over, but we've had appeals. You know, it doesn't stop. You think, oh, they've been convicted, they've gone to prison, that's it now. But it doesn't. Then they put the appeals in.
Nothing prepares you for that, and then you get the appeal, and then you find out that they can appeal again and again.
Yeah.
And then once they've appealed 3 times, it can go to a high court where 3 of the highest judges can then figure it out to whether they can go through it all again, which then they might be able to get free.
We've just had 3 years now of appeals.
Ours is just done.
Yeah, ours is just finished now. A couple of months ago. Because they were convicted on joint enterprise, none of them admitted who did it. I don't know who did it. The judge didn't know, but they were all there. We all know they were there because we saw them on camera go in and come out. So we know they were there, and one of them did it at least, but none of them would say who it is because they don't want to be a snitch, and that's what it all comes down to, is none of them would say who did it, so they all got convicted. And the only person who'd spoke was Ethan, who didn't go in, and he got manslaughter, you know. So then when they got convicted and they got those sentences, they all appealed. Oh, those sentences are too harsh. So they all got 2 years knocked off, which were then I felt that those judges didn't think that my son's life mattered. You know, 2 years. Why not just, what difference did 2 years make? Just leave them on the full amount. You know, what difference is 2 years going to make to them, really? 28 years or 26 years? Still a long time. Leave them at the full amount. But then one of them they were saying that the evidence was wrong, and one of the people who was a witness was made to say what happened. You know, the police wouldn't let him take his statement away and stuff like that. They tried on that angle, and then it went to the 3 judges. It was rejected. It went to the 3 judges. But it all gets drawn out. It takes months and months, and all that time, you're just thinking, is this person just going to walk free? Because then I was having the panic of, am I going to see this person? Are they just going to walk? Am I going to have to live like those mums who don't get the justice? But luckily, the 3 judges, they saw that he needed to do that time, and he's got to stay where he is. But all the time I have to see his parents. I see, you know, people send me pictures of his parents going down to London and protesting against joint enterprise, and see him holding things up with saying their son's not a murderer. And it's, you know, what's the word for it? Like you know, the injustice that their sons had. Not thinking about my son and what their son did to my son.
I think at that time when I was going through court, it was I targeted the families that were there. Not once did I sit there and think, you know, it had nothing to do with the parents. It was the sons that done it. Of course, in a way, they've lost their son too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they can still go and see their son, and they can still speak and write and do all of the above with their son in person.
Yeah.
For us, we've lost that option.
I have to go and sit at his grave and talk to a marble slab in the ground to see my son. I would do anything to swap over. I wish, when I said prison or dead, I wish that it would have been prison. If it was a choice of the two, prison. You know, he'd still be here. I'd still be able to go and see him and talk to him. And they've just taken that away. And for what? For nothing. For that £10 and his phone.
Is that what they got?
That's what they got.
£10 and a phone.
Yeah, that's it.
What a waste of life.
All those stab wounds for that. And I don't even know why. I don't know if Reece attacked him for going in there. I mean, Reece was in bed asleep. You know, they kicked the door in. They went in there. He was in his boxer shorts and a t-shirt. And there was 4 of them, as far as I know, in that room. And him.
What about the other guy that was in the room as well?
He pulled the covers over his head and pretended he wasn't there. He said that he slept through it all. But how can you sleep through somebody smashing through a glass table right next to you? You can't, can you? You wouldn't. He reckons he slept through it. I personally... So I have a lot of anger. I have a lot of blame. You know, the people who were in the other room and barricaded themselves. Maybe if they were there and the other lad would have stood up, Reece might still be here. You know, if I'd have let Reece live in that room, he might still be here.
You can't blame yourself.
I know. Everybody says that to me.
You can't blame yourself, because if they were coming for what Reece had, no matter what house he was in, they were coming for what Reece had, allegedly. You know, so it would have been. But then I could have protected him, because I would have been there. I would have stood up. I wouldn't have pulled the covers over my head. Do anything to protect him. I go through the same when I figure if I never had bad words with me and my brother the last time we met before he was killed, that if he would have thought he'd been in trouble, I would have been there, and they would have had trouble with both of us there. Yeah. You know. So I have that whole what if, and that is all we have. That's all we're left with, the what ifs.
Even my daughter, who was 9 at the time, said if she was there, she would have helped him. She's a 9-year-old girl. And his friend pulled the covers over his head. So I just told him he wasn't welcome at the funeral, and I never want to see him. You know, I can't handle that. With the families, you know, when I was at court, I kept myself busy. I had to do everything. I organised the funeral. It had to be the best funeral ever. You know, it had to be the best for him. And I used to write lists, endless lists of things, lists for the funeral. We were also, I never told you about this, but after he died, I needed to keep myself busy because he wasn't released. He was there. They had him, and they wouldn't let us have him. And I needed to keep myself busy.
Because they do a normal autopsy and then they do a criminal one, don't they? And that's hard, and it's very long.
I felt like he was having an operation. And I was anxious because they were telling me when they were doing this, and all the time it was like I felt like he was having an operation. But it was weird because nothing bad could happen from it because it had already happened, you know. Yeah. But in my head, it was just all messed up, and I just had to keep myself busy all the time. So I organised the funeral. I even made, the order of service little leaflets. I had to make that. I made a video that was going to be played in in at the funeral. So I had a video of him dancing to Outcast when he was 9, and it was the funniest dancing you've ever seen. And I thought, do you know what? Everybody's gonna be crying, and I used to threaten Reece and say, "I'm going to show these to you. I'm going to show this to your friends," and he was like, "You better not, Mum." And I never did. But I thought, right, I'm going to show everybody now because he can't stop me.
We put it up in this one.
Yeah,
Yeah, we put it up. Yeah.
yeah. And it just shows his personality, how cheeky he was, and everybody was crying at the funeral, and then this video came on, and everybody was just crying and laughing at the same time because they all knew that it was Reece. Even though he was only 9 at the time, and they might have only known him as an adult, they could just tell it was him and his personality, and it was just, and it's brilliant because it's to Outcast, and it's just so funny. And yeah, I just kept myself busy doing stuff like that. And when the trial was coming up, I investigated all the family members. I had to know who they were. So when we was in court, when I looked over, I needed to know who they were there for. Everybody. I knew cousins, grandparents, everything. I had a list of them all. Just in my head, it kept me busy. And I just needed to know who was who. Don't know why. Because, you know, what could I do with that information, really, other than just look at them and go, oh, I know who you are. But yeah, even now, I just keep myself busy with lists. I have to be organising things all the time. Got myself 4 dogs now, just to keep myself busy and keep my mind active.
Did you ever get targeted or anything by the friends or family of the people that took your son's life?
In court, my brother got threatened to have his throat slit by one of their friends. He got taken away by the police. They wouldn't let him back there. It wasn't so much threats or targets. Like, we had to get escorted to our cars afterwards. On the day of the sentencing, there was a riot van full of police there, ready, because obviously there was all their friends and family and our friends and family, and there was a bit of a fight that kicked off afterwards because obviously one of his friends was happy, I think it was one of their brothers wasn't, and a bit of a scuffle happened, but I didn't feel safe there. And the families, some of them were just awful. The girlfriends were there, and they were sniggering and laughing, and it was like it was a day out for them. It was almost like they were proud of them for doing what they did. And it just made me feel sick.
I can't imagine what that was like to go through that whilst you're going through the trial. We was very fortunate. The families of the people that did it were very respectful, and I can respect them for being respectful.
We had 2 out of the 5 families being respectful.
I think I was the one that was less respectful, to be fair, because I felt like they had to pay for their mistake. And it was a very hard lesson for me to learn, because I feel like I made them feel like something was going to happen to them whilst they were there. And I feel because afterwards, after the sentencing was done, the family to one of the guys went up to my mum whilst the newspapers pulled me away, because I had to deal with all that lot. That come up to my mum and said, "We're really sorry for your loss."
I heard that.
And I was like, what the fuck? I was ready to tear everything up, and I probably would have lost. I probably would have won. It didn't matter, because I was the one that was being rude.
Yeah.
I was the one that was assuming that they were the ones. So I never had that, what you had. And I think if I did, I was prepared for it.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for the niceness that come from their family. And I'm sorry that you didn't get that from them. 2
out of the 5 families were respectful. Cameron's family, they didn't come and speak to me or anything like that, but they didn't stare at me or laugh at me or smirk or make me feel intimidated in any way. They were very respectful. You can tell Cameron was brought up had a really good upbringing, and he turned very similar to Reece, And I just think she had as much, his mum had as much control over Cameron as what I had over Reece. Probably had the same thing, you know, if she tried to talk him out of it, or he'd probably distance himself like Reece used to with me. And I think it could have easily have been the other way around, you know, maybe if he got deeper into it and stuff, I think maybe I could have been in her position. And I've reached out to her and I've just said, you know, I don't blame you in any way for what Cameron did. And I think she appreciated that, because I think naturally a mother would, well, any decent mother would kind of blame themselves that their child has ended up like that. And
I think it does start with blame. I think that's the first thing that any parent thinks, whether their son's the aggressor or the daughter is the aggressor or the victim. I think blame is the first thing. What could I have done different? What did I do wrong?
Yeah. I've got a million ifs and buts. You know, if I'd have taken him to Yorkshire with me and said, no, you're not staying with your dad, you can come with me. If I'd have gone after him after, you know, he didn't turn up at work that day and said, right, you can get your ass back there and do some work. If I'd have just kept on and on at him instead of thinking, do you know what, he's going to distance himself, I'd rather him be here and come and see me without getting nagged at. There's so many ifs and buts, you know, if I'd have let him live in that room, there's so many of them, you know.
Does his dad live in the if and buts, or have you spoke to him much about it? Because even if you didn't get on, you still mutually lost your first babies.
Yeah, we do talk a lot now. I mean, we've got both our families now. We didn't really speak before, you know, it was just if we had to, you know, because of the kids. Now I speak to his wife, she speaks to me, my husband speaks to him, and vice versa. And I'd say as a family we're a lot closer, we're more united now.
Yeah.
You know, and if any good has come from, if you can say that, if any good has come from it, I think Reece would be happy to know that we're all together now and we all stick together as a family. It's not the dad and his family and the mum and her family. We're all a one big family now and everybody talks, and I think that's the only good that's come from it, really. And I think Reece, if he is looking down on us, as people say they do,
He's looking. I believe that.
Yeah, I think he'd be really happy about that, knowing what he's like. I think he just wanted his mum and dad to get on.
I think him and my brother sitting on that chair, watching us like, what the hell?
And Reece is probably sitting next to him, yeah. And I like to think that.
Me too.
And yeah, me and his dad, going back to keep him busy, he had a car and he absolutely loved this car. It's a Nissan Micra. And he liked the sort of retro cars, you know, that sort of thing. And he'd stripped this car and there was no wheels or doors or anything, and not even any windows in it. And it was a bare shell. He'd never got it finished, but he'd told everybody of what colour he wanted it and things like that. And we decided to restore it ready for the funeral. We wanted that car how he wanted it at the funeral, and we did it. And that's what kept us busy.
Good.
All the way up to it.
If you had any advice to any other families that are dealing with their sons or daughters losing their way a little bit, what would you say to them now?
Just keep going on at them. Don't give up like I did. Just try and get them out of it. I want to try and help families who are in my situation. Even if I can support the families that have still got their sons or daughters there and they're struggling. That's what I want to do. I want to try and help them, get them out of that kind of lifestyle and get them away from it. There's got to be a way of doing it, because I believe that if Reece hadn't started smoking weed at that point, I mean, I was talking to this about my daughter on the way here. I know a lot of people would disagree with me and say weed's not the reason, but ultimately, if he hadn't started smoking weed, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Because that, at the end of the day, is what led to his death. He got deeper and deeper and deeper into it because of his addiction.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like when you sit there and you say addiction is the key to or the root of all evilness, because you start out with doing it as fun, and then you've got to support that habit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with a lot of people, work becomes not eligible at certain ages when you do start finding drugs, that you ain't able to have a job that can support that kind of money, which does lead you to then becoming a dealer, which in Reece's instance, that's exactly what happened. And because of that, people felt like, his life was not valued at anything more than £10 and a phone.
Yeah.
Which they would have had to have split that between 5 people. And on top of that, say for instance, the driver, he didn't get what he was promised, and you never do when you commit a crime. You don't get what you feel like you deserve when you're committing crimes, because ultimately you pay with prison all your life.
Yeah.
So his £2,000 went down to a cut of £10, losing 7 years of his life. 34, and the same on with the other sentences. You split that £10 down between 5 of you over the course of 30 odd years.
Yeah.
The value is just not worth it. And there's one thing that you can't get back, and that's time. So we need to now, with the message that we put out there, with the message that you've put out there today for Reece and his legacy, is people need to understand the awareness of what's going on around their children. They need to understand and appreciate life that we have now, because you're not promised tomorrow.
And everybody thinks it's not going to happen to them. You see stuff on the news and you think that's not going to happen, but it does.
Yeah. We're prime.
Yeah.
We're prime for this. We always believed that we could never be touched. Now the most powerful man I've ever known got took away from me by some scumbags.
Yeah.
And there was no way that they were powerful enough to take my brother. He was a force. But it did. They got him when he fell over, stabbed him on the ground, ran off like cowards, stabbed him like a coward, serving a sentence like cowards. For what? Absolutely nothing, because the only people that live with this now is us. And it's our job for their legacy to be able to try and help other families understand that you need to wake up.
Yeah.
You need to wake up. You need to make the change, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much your words fall on deaf ears, it slowly will sink in. And that slowly sinking in is a lot faster than just leaving it and allowing them to get on with it. It's very important that they are aware of what you know about them.
I think a lot of parents bury their head in the sand and think that their kids are going to grow out of it, or they're just kids, they'll stop soon. But they don't.
No.
Reece was 23 and he started at 15, 16. He wasn't growing out of it at all.
Yeah.
And I should have just kept on at him. If I could turn the clocks back, I don't know what I would have done, but I would have tried harder. If I'd have known it would end up like this, I'd have done anything to stop him.
I know today would have been really hard for you coming down here, 2-hour journey. 2-hour journey?
Yeah.
2-hour journey down here, contemplating what you're going to say, how you think this was going to go, your feelings through it afterwards. I know that played a big factor with you today, but I thank you, and so does my audience, for you coming down and bearing all today. It's close to my heart. It's very close to your heart. And with this rawness, I'm hoping that we open eyes and save lives, especially with parents that have children that are in this game, that are in this line of work, that we need to make a difference now.
Yeah.
Sit them down, watch this, educate yourself, contact us, because I'm sure if they contact you, you would help them.
Oh yes,
definitely. And the same with us as well. We do everything we can. So I really appreciate you today. I really appreciate your family for sticking by you. I would send my love to Reece, because without him, your message would not be possible. So his legacy will live on with this.
Yep.
And I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add to any of it?
Just thank you for having me here and listening to me, because it actually helps me to talk about it.
It's good therapy.
I feel that a lot of the time I can't talk about Reece. It makes people feel uncomfortable, especially now 3 years on. I should be getting over it and moving on with my life.
No.
So I appreciate the time you've given me to sit here and talk about everything, and I feel that helps.
One of the things that people say to us, like when I'm tattooing them, because it's my job, right? I tattoo, and when I'm tattooing them, they always turn around and say, they'll say something and they'll go, "Oh, are you all right to talk about? Are you all right?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely all right to talk about him because it's keeping him alive.
Yeah.
I like talking about him.
I like talking about
Reece.
and
it's good
as much
therapy.
as I'm crying.
Yeah, of course.
It helps me a lot, and I think people shy away and they don't want to see me. In case, I talk about it and it makes them feel uncomfortable. The only time I feel uncomfortable is if somebody says to me, "How many children have you got?" That is the worst question anybody can ask me. And they say, "How many kids have you got?" Because no matter what, I know what I've got to say. I know how I've got to word it, but it throws me off every single time, and I cannot get the words out that I need to say. And that's that I've got 5 children, but one is no longer with us. Because then they say, "What happened?" And then, of course, I've got to talk about it, and then it makes them feel uncomfortable. I feel like I can't say it to them.
That's the legacy, though. That's the legacy. Like, you should never, ever feel bad for saying that one's not here, because that is you keeping him, because people are instantly asking about him. Now, what would you prefer people to be like? "Oh, sorry," and then walk off?
No.
Think about it, because if they say, "Oh, sorry," and walk off, that's another person that doesn't know your story, that don't know your pain, that don't know your journey.
I think it's the look on their face, the look of pity, and
that's the hard thing, the pity. People feel sorry for you, and it's like, I don't want you to feel sorry. I want you to be aware, like, this shit is real. This happens.
And I just feel like, the group of friends that I had, we've all kind of drifted because I'm more of a loner now, and I feel like people get sick of listening to me.
Did you notice that, though? Your friends that you had have separated. That was one of the quickest realizations of real around me. Because as soon as you lose someone, half of my friends disappeared.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to deal with it.
And then the ones that were there are the ones that don't really normally bother with you, but they just want to be in there, in the action, knowing what's going on, so they can gossip and tell people.
It's a fine line, isn't it?
And then you realise that those people, after 6 months, a year, as soon as the trial's over, they all just disappear. There's no more entertainment for them. There's no more gossip. There's no more sort of, I call them ambulance chasers.
Yeah.
And I know now who those people were. Mm-hmm. And I've got a few close friends, but everybody else is just, they're gone. Even one of them said to me, I bumped into them in the supermarket and said, "Sorry, I haven't been around. I don't know what to say to you." And then made an arrangement to come and see me the next day and never turned up. I've never seen them since, in person.
Good riddance to them all.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Live in the here and now, because the here and now is the you and the Reece is going to make the biggest difference in the world. Yeah. And
I just feel that one day, on the anniversary of his death, it's just going to be me and maybe his dad and, the close family at his grave. Whereas first year it was loads of people were there, and then the second year there was less, and this year there was less. And I just feel, give it 2-3 years, there's going to be nobody.
We spoke about this earlier on, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where it was the fourth year. Everyone had such good intentions when my brother first died. Same with Reece. There were so many people, and then the fourth year, the third year was a bit thin. The fourth year was absolutely disgusting. Yeah. Really, really disgusting.
And I'm dreading that, because I'm going to be coming up to my fourth. I'm in year 3 now. I'll be coming up to the year 4. And now you've said that, I'm going to be devastated. You know, when I get to that point where I feel like nobody cares anymore. You know, it's just they've moved on, they've forgotten, and
it's these videos like this that make people then realise again. You know, it really is, because, you know, like a lot of us, you know, and this might sound a little bit harsh. When you lose a family, an auntie, an uncle, a nan, a granddad, it hurts. But it's not like it's not the end of the world, but it is. Do you understand? But when you lose your child and you have to see them in a coffin, you have to say your goodbye, you're not allowed to hold them anymore. That when you hold them, they're not warm. It's a whole new level of love. And that's only you, because you've lost you.
Yeah.
They've just lost a friend. They've just lost. Do you understand? So we always go on and be like, well, why ain't you here? Why are you not letting the balloon off? Why are you not doing? Because for them, life did move on.
Yeah.
And for us,
and that hurts
so much. So much.
So I feel like it's just never I'm just gonna be like this forever. And it's just gonna get harder and harder, because every year is another year not seeing him. It's another year for everybody else not seeing him. And for them, they're just going to forget every year that goes on. Whereas me, it's just getting harder and harder and harder, and I need more support as time's going on. And I feel like everybody's just going.
And the harder it gets, the more alone you feel.
Everybody's just going. They think that I should be moving on now, and that's never going to happen. My life's on pause.
I know that feeling. But you're creating a milestone within the legacy, you know, and hopefully we can save more people on the back of Reece and on the back of how you feel. Connecting pain together to be able to create a positive message to try and save the next generation. But I do urge that for your 10-year-old and your 12-year-old, they need to speak to a stranger.
Yeah.
Listen, if they want to speak to me,
their schools are organising counselling. They've had grief counselling. They're having some. I don't know if you've heard of Guy's Gift, but they're going to be helping my daughter at school. So, and we've got victim support. We've still got
I found support. With victim support, I found that they're just doing their job. And it's really nice that you've got that, you know, but I found with victim support, they're just doing their job. And for me, none of that stuff worked. For me, I started dealing with it through my first videos I ever done for YouTube was vlogging about how the pain that made me feel. That was my physical therapy was with myself. I had to sit in my van and do it that way.
Yeah.
And that might be something that you might try and introduce to your son and your daughter, is them blogging about their pain, because that helped me more than anyone, because I'm like sitting there across the room from someone, and if they're switched on, your kids, they'll be like, what do you know? Has this happened to you? No.
That's
then
how
what
I
do you
felt.
know?
Yeah, when I went to trauma therapy, I'd sit there and just think, you don't know. You've been through this, you know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that to her, but I kind of resented her because she was listening to me, but she didn't understand.
Yeah. It's the understanding you need to connect with.
Obviously I see in the news things like this happening. There's other mums in my situation, and I try and reach out to them. Sometimes they don't want, to speak to me, but a lot of the time they do. And I've got a lot of contacts and friends that I've made now who are grieving mums like me, not just, their son or daughter's been murdered, and we kind of support each other because we get each other. We understand. It's not just the grief. You've got that trauma there as well. And we do help each other, I think, and that helps me because I'm telling them my story like I've told you, and so that helps me talking about it, and I'm guessing it helps them because they know they're not alone.
And that's the key thing, is making sure people are fully aware if they're not alone. And at this point, even though we know we're not alone, with the knife crime that you hear every day, it's ridiculous. that them are going through the same thing as what we're going through.
Yeah.
And it's not nice to know that other people are going through this pain. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But you know, we'll keep pushing for that awareness, and we'll keep pushing for the legacy. And I keep repeating myself about the legacy, but I think it's very important. They say that a life is forgotten within 3 generations. My goal is to make sure that that never happens.
Yeah.
With anybody, not just my family, but for you, for the next person. These videos will be etched in history, to be watched past 3 generations. I hope, I pray that the message carries on, because without people like us putting it out there, that 3 generation becomes more likely, and that ain't going to happen for my brother. And today it's not going to happen for Reece. They will live on in us, in the message. Thank you so much for coming today.
You're welcome.
Get some love.